Welcome to Startup Hack. Today we're diving into something that's been stressing developers out for far too long, Scrum. Yep, that's right. If you've been banging your head against your desk during planning meetings or you're exhausted from sprinting nonstop, it's time to rethink your approach. What if I told you there's a better way? Lean in, pun intended, because we're about to break down why Scrum might be stressing you out and why you should switch gears and get lean. Let's dive in today. All right, welcome to Startup Hack. I'm Spencer Thomason, and here at Startup Hack, we'd love to train software developers in our licensed coding boot camps, as well as build custom software solutions for companies. I do a lot of work as a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and a solid 25 years in software development, I've mastered the art of transforming technology, teams, and products. All right, let's start with the obvious here. Scrum is stressful. It kicks off with these planning meetings that are supposed to be about collaboration and alignment, but if you've been in the trenches, you know that it really feels like chaos. Everyone's tossing ideas around, and by the end of it, no one has a clue what's actually getting done. And then the infamous definition of done creeps in like a ghost that haunts your backlog. What does done even mean? Half the time you're debating that instead of building actual features. So Scrum just starts off being stressful. Now, the sprint. I hate this term because the sprint, it sounds so energetic, right? Like we're going to do this quick dash to the finish line. But what if I told you you're not running a 100-meter sprint, but you're running a marathon that never actually ends? And guess what happens when you are always sprinting? You get exhausted, you burn out your developers, your managers, and the entire process becomes this pressure cooker that doesn't let up. No one can perform at their best when they're always sprinting. So I hate the term sprint because they never end. The term sprint means you're resting between, but there's never a rest. Every sprint is followed right into the next sprint. Now, let's talk about these planning meetings and how much of a nightmare they are. You know, these Scrum planning meetings, here's the hot take. They are a massive waste of time. You sit here trying to estimate how long tasks will take, and guess what? You're probably wrong. Humans are terrible at estimating software development time. Yet Scrum insists that we act like we see into the future and that we're just building cogs. If we were just building cogs, that's literally the opposite of the definition of innovation. So hours spent on planning could be better spent, I don't know, actually building something and innovating. Yeah, I'm going to pass on those planning meetings. They're an absolute nightmare. So there's definitely different ways to do this. Now, let's get down to the definition of done. I think this is really one of the core problems with Scrum. One of the biggest problems with Scrum is its definition of done problem. You might think this is just semantics, but trust me, this is where Scrum really falls apart. One team thinks done means code is written. Another thinks done means it's deployed. And the product manager, they think done means the feature is live and the users are happy with it and it has no bugs. So good luck reconciling these differences without pulling your hair out. It's a recipe for confusion and delays. Because if you pick definition of done as code being done, then where do you put in the effort for the deployments? And if you put it in meaning the whole feature is done, then like you're never done because features are never done, right? Perfect is the enemy of done. And so these are, and this is where you get into this cycle that becomes the definition of done problem. And it's the reason I can't stand the sprint planning cycle. Now, if your company has systems that aren't connected, let us help you out, because here at Startup Hack, our specialty is connecting systems to help your company work like a well-oiled machine. So check out startuphack.com/Spencer, because we're helping lots of companies out. Now, this is why I think lean or using other lean methodologies work. We personally use Kanban, and I really enjoy Kanban. Kanban was designed by Toyota for an assembly line, and that's the way I think software should be. What is slightly different than an assembly line, but still works with Kanban and it takes into account, is that things can be various different stories. And I think the process of the lean methodology and making sure you're running agile, the real definition of agile and lean, really is where when you fall back to these, the process can be supporting innovation rather than harming it, like I feel Scrum does. So Scrum has you tangled up in meetings and stress. Lean is like lean and agile, and in my opinion, Kanban are like the cool, calm, collected older sibling. Lean focuses on eliminating waste and delivering continuous value. It's not about breaking people's spirits with arbitrary deadlines. It's about working smarter, not harder. And in my 25 years of development experience, lean and agile practices will win every time when you focus on those, not Scrum. So agile does not equal Scrum. Scrum does not equal agile. They are different. Scrum is a framework. Agile actually came after Scrum. So when you're making decisions that matter, cutting down on bloat, which I think is what Scrum is, and focusing on things that really matter, meaning innovation, push the needle forward. The other thing that I've found is my developers are much happier and I get better innovative products when I'm following a more lean, agile methodology like Kanban than using Scrum. Now, Scrum insists on these retrospective meetings after every sprint where you're supposed to reflect on what went well and what didn't. Now, in theory, this sounds good. But in practice, it turns into a blame game, or worse, an endless cycle of what should we do better next time without anything actually being able to do it. And see, here's the problem. You've got your planning meeting where you decide what's going to be in the sprint. You do the sprint, and then at the end of it, you're supposed to do your retro where you say, hey, what didn't go well this sprint? But the problem is you've now already had your planning meeting, so you've already agreed what you're going to do in the next sprint. So if you do find something in that retro, you're going to take that information, and it's not going to be for at least one more cycle and possibly 2 more sprint cycles before you could even possibly work on this thing. So then by the end of the next sprint, you're still stuck on the same problem. You're still saying, hey, that thing we're complaining about is still complaining. And at the end of the day, retros just become huge complaint sessions. Now, I know every Scrum master out there is going to scream, then you're not doing your retros right. And that's one of my things I hate about Scrum. If you don't like Scrum, it means you're not doing Scrum right. I hate that. It's just total circular reasoning. But this doesn't work. And I've seen it over and over where what we do is we get into these endless retros where we complain about the same things and we never get them changed. Now, that sounds like a dysfunction, and I hear all the agile coaches out there screaming, but then that means that you're not being effective and it's showing gaps in the team. That may all be possible, but you're so focused on the methodology of Scrum that you're missing the point of building good software. So this loop keeps you stuck in the past instead of looking ahead. Lean or agile, I like with Kanban, you can say, hey, we're going to do this. We know it's a thing. I prefer to do retros on a release cycle where we can say, hey, what happened on that release? And then you can work that into the next release. And then at the end of that release, you can do it. 2 weeks is way too tight of a time for retros. Like it's super, and I've talked to so many developers who agree with me on this. So I like this methodology better where you can do retros on a release cycle instead of on the sprint, because this is also where I find that retros become hugely divisive to the team instead of unifying. And I know every agile coach out there is going to be like, then you're doing your retros wrong. I disagree. Scrum talks a big game about collaboration, but here's a dirty little secret. The roles it defines product owner, product manager, developer, team, can actually create silos. And that's what I've always found, is it actually creates silos, and you always end up with an us versus them. It's always the developers versus the product manager, because the developers want to be doing technology things. It's going to be cleaning up tech debt and those kind of things. But I actually find that it doesn't foster collaboration. I believe that in my opinion, these roles end up going deeper and creating isolated roles where no one can truly understand the other. The product owner has one agenda, the Scrum Master has another agenda, and the dev team just wants to get code out and fix technical debt. It's like a bad game of telephone, and everyone ends up frustrated. The other part about this, and I think we'll get into this here, the other part about this is how much weight it puts onto the product owner and the Scrum Master, when really it should be driven by the developers, because that's where innovation happens. If the product owner is the one, product owner or manager, I'm using those terms pretty interchangeably here, if those are the ones who drive the innovation, you're not going to have a very innovative product because they're generally not super technical. Now, let's talk about velocity. This is one of my favorite ones. The magic number that managers love to track. Oh, well, our dev team's velocity went up. Yeah, that just means somebody's playing the game, right? Focusing on velocity is like focusing on how fast your car is going without paying attention to where it's headed. Just because you're moving quickly does not mean you're delivering value or heading in the right direction. In fact, the obsession with velocity often means teams are shipping half-baked features just to hit a number. Quality suffers, morale drops, and at the end of the day, you're stuck with a product that doesn't deliver. I've seen this time and time again. I call it the velocity trap. So speaking of delivering value, if your systems are a tangled mess and you need help streamlining them, head over to starterpack.com/Spencer and let us help you get your tech stack in order. Now, Scrum loves its meetings, doesn't it? Daily stand-ups, sprint planning, retrospectives, backlog grooming, the list goes on and on. But here's the kicker. These meetings aren't always agile. They slow down the progress and create a lot of overhead. Scrum on average creates 20 to 30% more overhead than true agile methodologies like Kanban. True agile means being flexible and adaptable on the fly, not getting bogged down in a rigid structure that stifles innovation. Meetings should help, not hinder, and that's where lean and agile shine by keeping things simple and productive. Here's a big one for you. Are you ready for this? Hold on to your horseshoes. If you change your delivery length, i.e. a sprint, that will totally break Scrum. If you're like, well, this time we're going to do a 3-week delivery, that works with Agile and with Kanban. It's literally a definition of Agile. You can be Agile to say, hey, we know that we want to get this release cycle a little larger than last one. We're going to make this one a week longer because it's Agile. Think of the very word Agile, right? Like it's somebody who can cut and juke, right? You're Agile. And so, but Scrum, this would literally break the system. The ceiling would fall and everybody would run around screaming with their hair on fire. This Agile meeting is proof that Scrum is not Agile. And so I hate all the time when I hear people say, oh, well, we do Agile. And I'm like, wait, are you following Scrum? I disagree that you're Agile. And that leads me into point number 10. If you've ever worked Scrum for any length of time, you know this. The burnout is real. The constant pressure to meet sprint goals, the endless cycles of planning and reviewing, it takes a toll. Developers aren't machines, and treating them like they can sprint endlessly is a recipe for disaster. Agile, on the other hand, emphasizes sustainability. It's not about how fast you can go in one sprint. It's about how far you can go over the long haul. So if you want to keep your developers and not burn them out, get rid of Scrum, move to something more agile like Kanban, and there's a lot of other options out there. And I know I say that to some people, and people are like, there's something besides Scrum, and it's like this huge shock. Another major issue with Scrum is its one-size-fits-all approach. Every team, every project, every company is different, yet Scrum expects everyone to follow the same rigid framework. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. In contrast, lean and agile methods adapt to the needs of your team and your project. It's flexible, it's scalable, and it works across different industries and teams. So, get lean. What's the bottom line? You've got to get agile and you've got to get lean. Lean methodologies is about delivering continuous value without the unnecessary stress that comes with Scrum. It emphasizes efficiency, cutting out the bloat, and making sure every action has a purpose. I really personally have always found Kanban fits especially small startup teams very well. After 25 years from working in software development, I can confidently say that lean, agile methodologies is the way forward. Your team will be happier, your product will be better, and your business, it'll be running like a well-oiled machine. And remember, if you need help connecting your systems and cutting down the clutter, visit startuphack.com/Spencer, and we've got you covered. Now, what are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I know there are Scrum Masters out there right now, just like in this panic mode. They're shaking, their hands are going crazy because they don't know what to do, that somebody would dare go against their religion of Scrum. Hit me up. I love to have a great discussion. Teach me where I'm wrong. But as a twice certified Scrum Master, and as somebody who has run Scrum for a long time, let me tell you, I think it's a great recipe for burnout and confusion and bloat. So here at Startup Hack, we love to train software developers in our licensed coding boot camps. Hit us up about that, because if you're in certain states, we can help get that covered for you by the state, and build custom software solutions for companies who need help getting their systems connected. So reach out, because we'd love to help. Hit the link down below or check out startuphack.com/Spencer today, and we will catch you guys tomorrow. Later. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, because we bring you lots of great tutorials and tips that every developer should know. See you next time.